Welcome, everybody. We're here to talk about bringing building automation systems into technical education. We want to get some updates from everybody. So this is going to be an interactive session. And the way we're going to do this is I'm just going to start out by giving you kind of a brief idea of what we're doing at MATC. And then Robert's going to talk about what he's seeing at Metropolitan. And I'll also, at some point, I'm going to ask another question relative to this as other people start chiming in. But for building automation, historically at Milwaukee Area Technical College, what we've done is it's been part of the HVAC program and a little bit in the power engineering and in sheet metal areas. And what they've done is, as part of teaching installation work for air handling systems or chillers and that, they have always a controls component. And so it's kind of just part of what they have to do when they're doing their installation work or maintenance work. They did have at least one class which was solely dedicated to DDC controls. And so they did have one class. So it's kind of an introductory type of a setup. And generally they do a really good job at providing the basics of, okay, these are different types of control circuits. Well, taking a step back there, looking at pneumatics. So people start to get the language of what is involved with building controls, inputs, outputs, things like that. But they, as part of the HVAC program, never went into real big depth or real detail about it. So that's when we started up the automated building systems program at MADC as a result of work from Best Center, what Brian had been doing. We developed our own program based on our industry and partners' input. And now we have a very, I'm going to call it basic level program. It's a diploma, so it's just 2 semesters. And we're turning out not a lot people right now because we just can't find the students, but we're working on ways to do that too. So we've gone after some NSF grants, kind of tying into what Brian talked about yesterday, last presentation, where we had proposed to NSF to get a grant to help us with this marketing effort and going to work better with the city of Milwaukee and the underserved areas of the city to provide them information on the abilities of these careers in controls, with the intent of hosting some workshops for them to see this and get them interested in taking courses that get them into digital badges and connect them with part-time work with instructor or industry partners who have said, hey, we will hire people if you do that. And so we're getting some internship opportunities for these people. So hopefully that will help to drive our numbers up, because they're not real high right now. I've been trying to develop it, and COVID came along, knocked our legs out from underneath us, and now I'm slowly trying to build it back up again. So that's what we're doing. Robert, you want to tell us what Metropolitan's been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Metro, we our building controls portion of our classes has always been a part of our HVAC degree. Our initial controls class is required for anybody who's getting the HVAC associate's degree. So it's guaranteed that every one of our HVAC students comes across through our controls class, at least our initial controls class once. And then all of our other controls classes count as electives for the HVAC associates. So we get students who have some interest in the topic, maybe just basic, or maybe they're building operators coming through and want to get a little bit stronger grasp on controls, passing through our courses. So that really helps us fuel that portion of our program. The controls itself is we have both a career certificate, which is very focused on controls, consists of the basic electrical class and then our 4 controls classes. And then we also have a certificate of achievement, which is kind of that halfway between or halfway to an associate's degree level. We had intentions of adding that full associates for building controls a couple of years ago into our new catalog, but we ran into the issue that everybody ran into in the beginning of 2020. So that kind of put a damper on, I'm sorry. Yeah, beginning of 2020, whatever it was, however long it's been, I don't remember. And then this last year, our whole institution is going through some significant changes and implementations of changing how the institution works from the student side. So we had a hold on our catalog, so we couldn't do it this last year, but we're hoping to get it in for this coming year. Additionally, one of the very recent developments is, and this kind of goes to Brian's discussion yesterday about whether you build a controls program on the credit side initially or on the non-credit side. And we are in talks right now with a potential corporate partner off at Air Force Base here in Omaha to begin developing some non-credit classes, specifically kind of that industry training side for them. So that's kind of exciting for us.
Now let's open it up and see if anybody else wants to give what they're doing at their particular college and see if it fits in with what we're seeing already, or if there's new things that you're looking into. Anybody want to step on in? Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Connie King from NSF, and we are still working on our NSF.
You're
Connie,
really weak, Connie.
Yeah.
Pardon? Pardon?
Your voice is really weak.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll try. Good.
That's
okay.
better.
I'm sitting outside in a coat and gloves, and it's not one of those kind of things. Anyway, we are still working. Our recently realized that the facilities management program at our school is taking 4 of our 5 building automation courses as part of their degree. So we're kind of shifting a little bit in emphasis there. We started out as a second year second year track for the HVAC program, but we may be in the process of changing our emphasis a bit. And I'm trying to think what else to say. We're still developing courses, so it's huge. I have to say, Brian kind of depressed me a little bit yesterday with his remarks about you really need an expert to develop the good program. We have no experts right now. But we're all working hard and very, very excited about being part of the program. We want to learn, but yeah, I'm looking forward to your workshop in June to help us learn a little bit more.
Yeah, you know, I having from my perspective, having classes applied to other programs is really beneficial for driving enrollment. Maybe it's a little bit different for what you had, Connie, because it sounds like it's shifting over from HVAC to facilities management. But if you can somehow keep it in both areas to help drive the enrollment, that would, from my mind, would be beneficial. Maybe I'm not seeing everything you have. We have just one class of ours that's part of the power engineering program, and that has been one of the biggest drivers of new people coming into our program, because they get a taste for it and they're like, wow, this is really interesting. I want to go into this. And so they finish their power engineering diploma, and then they come on into our area and finish up our diploma program. So having that interaction is really, really important, I think. And maybe for a mature program, one that has way too many people currently in it, that's not an issue. But for me, I see that as a really good marketing tool. So
agreed, and I think it will stay split between the two, and maybe we'll even get to add somebody else in, like something. But yeah, I agree.
I've been trying to reach out to our architectural engineering department to see if we could have some interaction there, and I've been trying to work with them for several years now, and they're not real receptive, I guess. Oh, well. Anybody else want to open up your mic and talk about it? Or Robert, do you have any comments on Connie's hand there?
Nothing in particular. I 100% support what you said, though, about maintaining connections with other programs and using those as recruiting tools. Those are amazingly useful.
And it goes both ways, because you end up recruiting for their programs too, but that's okay. It works out.
Yep. I know Jenny and Bob have been working on some stuff on the side, maybe not directly related to their programs.
I was going to volunteer Jenny to actually talk about that. I was wondering if she was there and available. If not, I got no problem talking about it.
I don't
It's kind
see
of
her on
her
here.
project.
Yeah,
I don't see her on.
Jenny's on. She's sharing her screen now.
Oh,
Hey
okay.
guys.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. Nice to see everybody. I actually have been working while I've been listening to the webinars on this awesome project, and Bob and Ted and I actually met down at the College of DuPage in October, and Bob helped me create this wireless local area network, which I got set up next to me at home today. And actually today I have sketched out with our marketing folks kind of the base plate for this trainer we're putting together, which I shared on the screen. It looks kind of like a sketch because it is, but what we intend to have is a 1-credit course that will be called Smart Start to BAS. And we have 5 high schools signed up to teach this course starting next fall. And all of this is funded by the National Science Foundation's ATE program. Thanks to Mentor Connect for their help in getting this funding. But overall, the idea is to, like many of you, boost enrollment. And like Connie, I mean, I didn't work in the controls industry. I think she kind of mentioned, we're kind of learning as much as we can so we can teach this, but I feel pretty good about where I'm at. And I've been teaching the control stuff that Best has taught me over the years to my existing students. But now we've got this new avenue started with a career pathway certificate out of high schools. And the idea is if they take this class along with a couple of basic electricity classes that are already taught in those high schools, that they could potentially be employable right after high school and then continue their education at our college.
That's fantastic.
She forgot to talk about the Bass Pi and animating our own VAV GIF and creating a throttling range for the different degrees and stuff of it. But you remember that
that's
part?
a prettier picture. Yeah, that's a prettier picture. I should have picked that graphic. But yeah,
that was pretty cool project though, is pulling the GIF in and then creating the animation in steps.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing all this once it's developed here in the next couple of months, along with like the curriculum. We will have worksheets and curriculum all ready to go, ready to share. But the BAS view by Contemporary Controls is what Bob brought up, and we'll have the students actually interacting with the graphics rather than throwing them block logic right away. The Smart Start to BAS course is just going to be an introduction to building controls, and we're not going to get deep into the logic. So we use the BAS view just to have the students operate the controls from a graphic screen at first. And I'm hoping those kids that are into video games, see this as kind of like, oh, cool, I can play on a computer with graphics all day. That looks like a fun career. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I see somebody in the chat, Stan Horo, mentioned that he's wondering if anybody's, oh, it flipped over, I lost it. Okay, there it goes. Is anyone using their class sections to train existing institutional technicians about BAS? And yeah, a couple things on that front here at MATC. We got, coming through our program, we have people who are in the field already to people just in high school. So we have a whole range of different types coming through, but we're also in talks with our facility department at MATC to use what we have as curriculum to train their people in building operations so that they can bring up their game. And that will be a challenge. I had a offline discussion with one of our co-network people, Susan, this morning about that. And it's often, you gotta bring them to that first bar first, and it's kind of hard to get them there. We were talking about, in particular, about BOC courses, and they didn't, the people that we had coming into the class really had a hard time. They were struggling with getting the concepts in the BOC program. And if they're going to struggle with those concepts, it's going to be hard for them to take some of the courses that we have. So, but I don't know, does that answer your question, Stan? You want to?
Yeah, it starts at, I actually work with Robert Nirenberg here at Metro Community College. And we're struggling mightily retaining building engineers. And sorry about that. And so I was just curious, Robert and I'll chat offline later about this, but I think one of the easy, and it won't be easy to do, but easy moves might be to set up some training for our engineers using some of the technology that we're already using and teaching in the classrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, I don't know. One of the things that we're noticing with our more advanced building controls classes is that they are really popular among technicians currently in the field, specifically building operators among like our public school districts, some of our county and city building operators that come through on the HVAC side do continue on and really participate pretty well and heavily in the more advanced building controls. Is anybody else seeing a trend, something like that with your control classes, or setting up specific technician training for other institutions, things like that? We'll let you think on it. Peter wanted me to, oh, go ahead.
You talking to me?
I don't know if anybody, I heard somebody come up and on, so you got the floor, Bob, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, there is a trend for that. We have a lot of students. We have a kind of graduated program that goes through the basics of electricity, and the people that gravitate towards electricity and they really are interested in controls, and it sparks the whole automation thing. Should I go industrial or, building automation? And I mean, we have obviously outlets to Siemens or Trane or ALC or Distex, and Allerton's main one too, Cisco. So we get them into entry level positions, and I constantly have to deal with these people that are always looking for 12,000 people all at once. And, they always want your best and brightest, and you have to listen to that stuff, which is, I completely understand, but that's not the reality that we have existing in America in every community college system right now. And you're going to get the people that are interested in those fields, and that's what's going to build you a good employee for the future. But don't expect somebody to come in and program. And I've found myself yelling at, managers and owners of controls companies because they want the best and the brightest, and then they have them terminating wires. They're not allowed to hook up 24 volts of power because we have a union problem in Chicago. And, with how everything has to work, controls techs can't touch electricity, certain things. It's everywhere, I guess, but
Maybe worse there.
What's that? Yeah.
Worse in Chicago.
Yeah. And one of the things I tell them is, they ask me, well, why did this student quit? Well, that student was brilliant and could go work for any person on the mechanical or the electrical side and you had them pulling wires and terminating like they were a complete moron, and they were going nowhere and just bored with the job. So the other piece of it is how do they push people and keep them engaged, just like we have to in the classroom, into their organizations so that they don't leave if they get too remedial of a job in the controls industry, especially somebody with education, not just somebody off the street that might have had a background enough to get them to start to learn. You know, it's the whole, for the same reason that our techs go into service trucks within 30 days typically, it's because they're ready. You know, they just got to get a feel for the field. So
It's hard to
are
imagine
some
you
of the
yelling at
things.
anybody, Bob, but sure, I guess we could believe that.
So I have a question for Bob. You have one of the most mature HVAC programs in the country, probably one of the most highly developed. How did you integrate BAS into your program? And when did you start that process, and what do you have now?
Well, you know, we started with controllers and stuff, but you almost have to have a real system to destroy. So that's why we built a micro-sized building in the lab. And, you know, everything from RO or anything that could take third-party points like Modbus is probably our default at 38.4, and create a speed of a network and have multiple points, multiple control systems, even the Emerson refrigeration controller, you know, using that and bringing that into our automation system, and sub meters, and you name it, it's in there. But we had to bring all these together all at once, and obviously we had to buy everything in pieces. We did it through Perkins, as Brian was talking, and a bunch of other different things and donations with all of our partners. And you know, it's just been an effort. It's called the Central Plant Project that we've been working on for the last 8 years, and putting it all together. And even from refrigeration to spoiling controllers, is what can we possibly pull communication off of? And I think a lot of people would be surprised to understand that, you know, you could pull communication off of modern furnaces now, modern hot water heaters, modern boilers. There's communication ports, and while it might not be BACnet, it doesn't much matter. But if you can start to capture that too, now you're looking at an integration piece you can add into your classrooms.
That's a really exciting point for me, Bob. The idea that you're, excuse me, working on that communication piece in your lab is really one thing that's exceptionally challenging. And one of the things that we have heard a lot about, or a number of times in this conference, and something that if you're in the field or have people adjacent to the field right now, we talk immensely heavily about BACnet as the standard communication protocol for building automation systems. And it really is. But Modbus is an older communication, but it's no less valid. And it's so heavily used.
It's everywhere.
It's so many devices.
It's in every controller, every device. It's everywhere. It's in every industrial network in the world. It's everywhere.
And that's the thing, is it's really heavily on the industrial side. And if you need to communicate with a boiler, is one of the greatest examples. There are very few boilers that actually talk BACnet, but there's a vast number of them that talk Modbus. And almost every modern control system has the ability to work with that. The reason we don't, you know, try as heavily perhaps is because it is a more rudimentary communication protocol and a little bit harder to implement in most control companies' systems. But really, definitely something I commend you for going that route. That's a tough road to hoe, but good returns.
Yeah, and the other thing, a lot of control techs I think get confused just because they start looking at like a boiler system and thinking they got to write the control scheme. It's like, no, you're just writing a point saying it's on.
Yep.
you know, on most of it. Now you can grab all the data points, right? And record all the data as we've been talking about all day. You know, if you want to monitor everything, all those points already exist. But, you know, most of it, those are independent systems that have to run on their own too, and aren't going to be, you know, if you have to put it in manual mode and turn that on and get heat to your building, so be it. You got to have that capability. But there's a lot of systems that operate like that in a manual or an auto mode. And we try to make sure that everything that we're building has that same capability so that you can beat that into their head relentlessly until they understand the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Thank you, Bob.
Robert Celeste asked a question. Have any of you tapped people in industry to teach as adjuncts? And I think that's a question that is very pertinent. And Ted, for example, has Johnson Controls, which is one of the big 3 controls companies in the country. And I think it's taken you now about 8 years to get them to even let you hire an adjunct. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah, well, I'm in year 6, and I'll have starting in 2 weeks when class starts up, my first adjunct since the first year of the program. And he is an ex-Johnson Controls technician. He's also a graduate of our program from that first year. And he now works for Train. So we've been trying to reach out to industry, our industry partners, the whole 6 years we've been in existence to get instructors, and they have been unable to come up with any. And the only reason I think this person is even going to be doing it is because when he was in my classroom, I saw potential in him, and I put a bug in his ear. I said, hey, when you got some experience in your belt, I want you to consider coming back here and teaching. So we kept contact ever since then, and he's going to be coming back in.
So that's really good to hear. And I asked because I did that in my own biotechnology program in California. And I found there's a surprising number of people that have always thought they'd like to try teaching, but they don't want to like drop their, in quotes, real job. So I had a series, I think I had 13 or 14 short techniques courses, all very hands-on, and had people from all walks of the biotech industry. All the courses were taught at night. 1 to 2 units would be, they only ran for like 5 weeks. I think admissions and registration people hated me because they had to do registration halfway through a quarter, but it actually really worked. And some of them really stuck with it and actually are still teaching. Some of them said, hey, this is so much more work than I ever thought it would be. I'm going to find somebody else to teach this course for you. But it's at least an avenue to think about, especially if you're, thinking about getting things going. You feel like you don't have the expertise, maybe leveraging some of that and having it in that position as an adjunct. But it's really, you're not like a formal, it's not like we're going to expect you to teach all the time, do this one specific course that you have expertise in.
Can I weigh in on this one here for a second?
Sure. So
it sounds good. And I think this is, I'm not trying to be offensive at all. I think somebody like Robert is an anomaly coming out of a digital minded industry and actually being able to teach. The number one problem I found with not only instructors, I'm not going to name the companies, but I've had 4 or 5 instructors, just different ones from different organizations, come in to teach basic controls classes. Basic. These are people that are building buildings, and these are people that should know all these things. The number one problem every one of them exhibit is they don't know how to teach. The second thing is they can't break down those super complex systems into a common language and a common just lesson plan to say, hey, this is what we can build fundamentals so that we can build the complexities upon that. and they have a very hard time, even when you give them direction. So even giving someone direction, having the inability to teach after the direction and how to take the course, the execution of it's very difficult for people, especially in automation. So while they might be experts in the field and could put a whole building together themselves, educating people that don't know anything about digital logic or anything is there. And the other problem is it turns into an acronym language thing like we deal with in education, right? With these folks that don't know how to think digitally. And that's a huge issue with bringing technicians in, is that how do they teach? How do they create the fundamentals to educate, advanced knowledge upon that, right?
Yeah, I think that's critical. I already have my eye on my next adjunct coming in, and he's in my classes right now. That teaching aspect that you said is missing, Bob, I see in him because he actually teaches scuba diving, and he's telling me about methods he uses in teaching scuba diving. I'm going, wow, he's really nailing it on the head, and he's already expressed to me.
Few and far between on how you find somebody. I mean,
Yeah,
one of the teachers,
7 years, right? 6-7 years.
One of the teachers I had was a regional teacher. It was the regional and corporate educator. So I'm going to leave it at that.
For the
I'm not saying
company.
for anything.
And on the other hand, and this is really scary, we're seeing some of our best instructors in our network being picked off by industry. They're being attracted out of teaching. Teaching is a skill that incorporates both the technical side, and I think as Bob was illustrating, being able to explain those concepts to people that are not familiar with them. And it's actually much harder in a technical field to retain both all of that technical knowledge and then at the same time be able to teach. Any one of our instructors could go right back into industry and do quite well. And one instructor was telling me he's getting an offer, or maybe not a formal offer, but an inquiry every week. That's a lot of offers, and that's a lot of pressure on him to stay in teaching with his enormous workload. And it's a real problem, and one we haven't overcome yet. There's such a labor market dynamic going on in this field.
I think the same thing happens with cybersecurity, computer science, software engineers. I think it covers a lot of the different areas. Mine wasn't, I wasn't looking for adjuncts that were going to stay around for a long time, but what I wanted was people that had, well, the person who taught high pressure liquid chromatography for me came from SRI. And what he said was, I don't want to teach a whole lot about theory. He said, what I want to do is I want to bring in broken pumps. I want to bring in the systems. I want students to get hands-on experience with it. That's what I'm really interested. And I said, great, because that's what I want. I can do theory, I can present theory, but having the possibility of having somebody who would, he would show up. He actually got Shimadzu to donate 8 HPLCs every 2 years with all of the columns, all of the software, and everything that was needed for the class. So every time Shimadzu upgraded a system, they would give me new equipment, mainly because of pitching it that if you train on something as a technician, and then you have the ability to buy a piece of equipment, you generally buy something that you've actually had experience with. So that's why I brought it up. And it may not work in this instance, but I just thought I'd toss it out there.
No, you're absolutely right, Celeste. I think almost universally, we all try and recruit from industry for adjunct instructors, even short-term adjunct instructors, as you suggest. But aside from the issue that Bob brought forward, about we're, traditionally we're technicians in the field. We do it, and being able to communicate that, and especially to a student, it is a certain skill set. But the other issue we're running into right now is the controls industry is so incredibly overloaded with work that when we can attract someone who actually has interest in teaching, they either are at a point where they can't commit to being able to be there even, one night a week for 5 weeks. Or if they do have that capability, they don't have the energy left at the end of the day because they're literally driving the wheels off of their work vans, working 10, 12-hour days on a very regular basis. So it's currently a challenge. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the industry has not gotten it through its thick head that we are the potential solution for this problem. And that if they would be willing to, on a corporate level, give us some support from the personnel standpoint, that we might be able to start helping them out of this hole that has been dug for them. But
This, Robert, on this same line of thought is, so it's interesting. Like, you get some of these companies, they're so big that they don't even communicate with each other.
No.
And I'm going to leave the company name out right now, but the national manager for one of these monster companies of HR came, and he was traveling around, and this was his idea, was to come to these colleges. And he called me up out of the blue because he had heard from around, personally came over and saw the program and was like, what the heck? And he was visiting 2 or 3 others. And I had told him this problem, this dilemma that sits there is that, I don't have time to fight with your organization for equipment or licensing. And it's absolutely pathetic that you don't get off your ass and help all the schools around the nation, because they're the only solution you got that's viable right now. Because I've seen your training programs. And I just told them how it was. And we might have a great opportunity with a huge organization across the country, with these folks. But if he puts a package together, and I said, you don't necessarily have to have, a different order scheme for everybody. But if we developed a set of curriculum that we could share with educators across the country, and you guys funded all these controllers across the nation to all my different buddies, I said, now we're talking, because I'm tired of dealing with all your operations managers, all your other people in sales that all start talking about your licensure. And you just need to give us dealer status to where we can walk in and these always update and we're good to go. So it's an issue that won't stop until organizations truly realize it.
What did he say?
Oh, he said he'll be talking with me after New Year's. And he's also said, give me a list of everything you exactly want. And he says, I'll have it. And I'm going to talk. He's talking to, he was talking with the CEO and everything else. So and it's a monster company, but he was talking with CEO and everybody else about this idea. And I said, let's start with everybody part of this group in the Best Center. So we might have a bunch of free controllers.
Pop, I couldn't agree more with that aspect of it, but I think there's a couple other things about.
Man, I missed you. Good to hear your
There's
voice.
non-disclosure agreement along with the licensure. There's people who have the agenda of wanting to, they'll help you, but they want all your graduates, and they're not going to tell you anything about their product that you could tell to somebody else who's going to go to work for another company. And it's just a mess. They're so scared of losing whatever edge they've got in their business model that they're not going, they're cutting off their face.
Another piece of the puzzle is the minimum quals. And I think in the instance you were citing, Celeste, those folks probably had bachelor's or master's degrees going in, given their role in the companies. Here, some of our people in industry have a bachelor's degree. Many of them do not. I think I see that John Zay is on the call, and I don't know how Sac City gets around it when the rest of us suffer with minimum quals. Somehow he's been able to hire some really talented people, and I don't know whether they have a college degree at all. John, do they?
So in California, what you have to do is prove that the person has the qualifications to teach the class. The person who taught histology for me for several years had a high school degree only, but she'd worked in the industry for 25 years and worked for a very reputable company. So that maybe that makes it a little easier there.
Yeah, I guess part of it's what kind of academic senate you're dealing with. But John, what's been your experience? You've hired some really talented people.
Yeah, thank you. So my understanding in the state of California at the community college level, it's up to each individual community college district to set the qualifications. So that's why Los Rios Community College District will allow experience gained in the field versus having a 4-year degree or a master's. And it's discipline specific, and it's pretty much just for and I'm going to say CTE, not CE, because I do believe there is a difference. But the college in the Bay Areas, they don't do that. They their
No, actually,
districts have
John, I
decided.
was at Foothill De Anza, and we definitely did it exactly as
well,
you described it.
But I know you're in Oakland. What college district is that?
Well, that partly in my old district at Laney College, Norbert Bischoff was the first statewide academic senate president. And he was unwavering on minimum quals. He was a chemistry teacher. And he set kind of a DNA in that district,
right,
in the Peralta district. And that DNA has persisted.
But I think you're right, Peter. You had to get the academic senate behind you of all the colleges within the district. Mm-hmm. And then it goes to the board, the district board, for final approval, right? So it varies from district to district.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been my experience.
John, this is Doug Solovey.
Hi, Doug.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Good. I can tell you at our district, we had the same, and I'm sorry to centralize this discussion on California. I know there's a lot of people not in California, but our HR, when we were trying to get accreditation, all they were worried about was, or trying to get equivalency, was accreditation. They wanted to make sure that they were going to pass accreditation, and they thought if they did not meet the minimum quals, that they were going to get dinged. So anyway, that's my little 2 cents.
Well, and City College, actually all the colleges in the Los Rios Community College District, that's never been a negative issue with accreditation. So that's really the farthest from the truth.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that, John, that we over here in Omaha, our hiring requirements for both full-time and adjunct for the technical fields, electrical, HVAC, building controls, welding, etc., are oriented towards more towards industry certifications and experience. If anybody would, and we are an accredited group by the Higher Learning Commission, is our specific reporting authority. And if anybody would like to see what our requirements are for hiring instructors, I'd be perfectly happy to pass those requirements on to anybody who'd be interested.
Right. And Peter, I think I've sent you our hiring requirements for HVAC instructors.
I don't recall that, John. Maybe you could send them to me again.
Yeah, I'll go through the archives and send them to you.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I'll send them to Larry, and he can pass them on.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I
So,
would just like to add, this is Jackie Armstrong from Metro Community College. My experience with higher learning commissions and the Northwest Commission for Colleges and Universities, what they both mostly want to see is whatever your hiring policy is, that you are following it, whether it be that you have a master's degree or like we have at MTC, we have a master's degree in 2 years, a journeyman's license or 8 years, those kind of things. Like Robert said, we can send those to you. But higher learning commissions really want to see that whatever your policy is, that you're following it. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're setting these.
yeah,
So I would just like to add this, which is, so to hire a adjunct professor or a full-time professor in the MET program, 10 years field experience is fine. And I don't even think you have to have a high school diploma. All right. But for us to hire an instructional aide, they have to have a 2-year degree in the field, and they have to have experience in the field that they're going to work in. So there is no logic in that at all. So I'll just throw that in there. Thanks.
good. So does anybody have anything else to add to that? I know at my college, basically I was able to define the criteria we needed to have to hire somebody, because it was being an obstacle, and they said, well, you just got to change it. So I changed it. Made it pretty simple from that perspective. Just that nobody ever told me that, So I did, and was able to bring somebody on, and that worked out just fine. Of course, that kind of ties back into the other end of it with what you need to be certified and continuing on with certification for teaching while going forward. But that's a whole different topic. So
Ted, I just wanted to just say one more thing concerning our IAs. I did go to our HR department against the wishes of many people, and rattled the cage about the hiring criteria for IAs. And apparently my argument was strong enough that what they came back and they changed the language in the hiring criteria that says this, basically what they added was one little verbiage that said that they needed a 2-year degree, or they needed experience, and that would be determined by case-to-case basis. But what they did, they opened the door to allow us to hire IAs without a 2-year degree. So my message, I suppose, with this last verbiage is, even if they say no, go ahead and fight the fight, because the worst they can do is say no, and you're already at that doorstep, right?
yeah,
So you only got one direction to go, and that's straight up, right?
I think I'm going to try that case-to-case basis in the next revision.
Yeah, and I'll send that hiring package to Larry, and then he can disseminate it to you guys.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
All right. How about, let's kind of go back to getting building automation systems education to technicians. And I'll just reach out to some other people. I mean, I'm gonna go out east a little bit here, go out to Robin. Robin, what are you guys doing out there to in your approach to bringing building automation into your classrooms? Okay, so
Who are you asking?
the topic of the talk is bringing building automation systems into technical education and just updating, have all the colleges around the network update where they are with those things at this point. So I thought I'd try to bring it back to that part of the discussion and reach out to some of the other people around the nation here.
Yeah, maybe Mark could comment from Delaware. Whoops, he disappeared suddenly. I think he was having internet trouble.
Yeah, he's been in and out a couple of times.
No, here he is. So we've heard from a few people about how they integrated BAS into their programs. What about anyone else? What did you do? What approach did you take?
I see a Deb in our list. Is that Deb Hall by any chance?
Yes, it's Deb. Deb Hall.
Would you be willing to talk about how you brought building controls into your program?
Sure. So I'm from Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. And basically, we started from scratch. So there's no HVAC, nothing at Valencia College. So actually, I would say the Best Center was instrumental in helping us to get our program off the ground, and working closely with Georgia Piedmont Technical College and the amazing folks there were very helpful. So Georgia Piedmont is pretty much the closest BAS Tech program to Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. So in Florida, at the time when we started, like 2015, there was no BAS program. So one of the things that I did is I tried to reach out to the local area technical colleges in Orlando that were teaching HVAC and electrician training programs, and did some outreach there as far as trying to see if we could build basically a pathway from when the HVAC students graduate, they could come over to Valencia. So that was one of the things that I was working on. And so we've got a lot of really great basically degree pathways now established, relationships with the different technical colleges. But as far as hiring faculty members and a lab supervisor, we are still, we started officially fall 2018 was our very first cohort of students. And we are still running on just part-time faculty with a no lab supervisor. And so actually one of the things that I just did today was sent out a flyer to all of our industry advisor council members to basically, it's about reaching out to soon to be retirees or recently retired folks in their different firms, and asking if they could share this flyer with their HR department to send out to those individuals. And then just kind of it's one of those Valencia wants you, kind of Uncle Sam type of flyer, but just really trying to trying to drum up interest in could we just get folks that are near retirement, or maybe try to pull them out of retirement to come and teach for us, or be a lab supervisor. So So I'm definitely, yeah, that's a big struggle here at Valencia, which is similar to, it sounds like what a lot of folks are encountering. And our college still requires, masters. Right now, we've managed to kind of sort of get around that with some of the part-time faculty who maybe just have a bachelor's degree. But the ideal folks would be the ones that don't have the bachelor's degree, but Valencia is pretty hardcore about the education requirements. And so that's been a big challenge.
So it continues to be a challenge for everybody around here. I see we're coming up at 3:20 or my time 3:26, which means we have about 3-4 minutes before the next session starts. So I think what we'll do is, Robert, you have any closing statements, comments?
No, I think we've really covered some really important topics here. I really don't have anything to add at this point, but thank you for everybody who is continuing to teach and build your programs and is willing to share what you're doing. That's what this network is really all about, and that's how we all benefit. So thank you.
So thank you, everybody. With that,
So we have to actually leave this session to get to the last session of the day and
yes.
of the whole conference.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.